Now, the outer two movements, the first and fourth movements, are the really tragic movements in this piece. The inner two are much brighter. The first movement, after a slow introduction, develops that material into a really nervous, breathless theme. It feels like somebody not knowing which way to turn. The second theme of the first movement is Tchaikovsky's greatest love song. He doesn't call it a love song, but it puts his Romeo and Juliet to shame. Hence the speculation about this piece being some kind of a love letter, suicide note. The development of this first movement is the most graphic depiction of a frantic desperation I can think of. This is the sound of a person driven right to the brink. Second theme comes back, we return to that loving feeling, and somehow the piece ends with a kind of a consoling poise. Not a conclusion, but ready to move on. The second movement is the most charming music he ever composed. And it's said that he was dismissed by some of his contemporaries, Tchaikovsky was, as a composer of waltzes. We know that he composed such great, beautiful, memorable waltzes. Well, he seems to thumb his nose at this supposition that writing a waltz is so easy by writing something like a waltz in 5/4 time. I think this is the earliest example of a piece that's entered the repertory in 5/4. So instead of being a waltz in 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, this music moves in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And somehow Tchaikovsky is such a master that he makes this sound like the most graceful, natural way of dancing. Now, the third movement is the most exuberant music Tchaikovsky ever composed. It's a sort of a march. It begins with this skittering energy running through the strings and the woodwinds, and gradually coming out of it is this really grand march theme that gradually assembles itself as the music goes on until it bursts out in the full orchestra and just comes to a thundering conclusion. Now, audiences almost always stand up and cheer at the end of the third movement. I don't know whether they're conscious that there's a tradition of doing that, or whether they really think the piece is over. I think maybe Tchaikovsky actually intended this. It sounds like the upbeat conclusion of a journey in a symphony, but the piece isn't over yet. Maybe people applaud, maybe it's good that they applaud, because it's really your last chance to feel good in this symphony. Some conductors will try to cut off the applause by proceeding directly into the fourth movement before you have a chance. Personally, I find it cathartic to be able to clap while you still have a chance, because it's very hard to applaud after the last movement. It begins directly with sort of a downward swoon. It generates a melody that feels consoling. It feels like it's gonna be okay, it's gonna be okay. After a development section that becomes truly turbulent, it feels like there's no way for it to be okay. That consoling theme comes back in a minor key, and as soon as you hear it like that, you know there's no hope. It's very hard not to read a program that is a story into music like this. The music just winds down, sounds so much like death or like giving up. It's a very courageous way to end a symphony, very quietly. It's a good thing if you clapped after the third movement.